everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today, we are joined by someone who, in many ways, reflects the season of life so many of our listeners are in right now. Dr. Nelva Lee is a healthcare and education leader, an entrepreneur, a community advocate whose work is focused on building systems that create access, equity, and empowerment, particularly for multilingual immigrant and underserved communities.
Over more than 2 decades, Nelva's career has spanned healthcare administration, medical interpreting, community health technology, and higher education. She's taught at the graduate level, helped shape national standards for medical interpreters, and founded organizations centered on serving families, seniors, foster youth, and modern day orphans. Throughout that work, she describes her leadership as faith driven, rooted in compassion, structure, and a strong sense of mission.
She's also the mother of three, has been married to her best friend for 25 years, and is a woman in her 50s who continues to challenge herself while building and leading organizations. And now she is running for superintendent in Georgia of schools. We don't know Nelva real personally yet, but we were drawn to the way she weaves service, resilience, innovation, and faith into a life that's still clearly very much unfolding. And we are so glad to have her here today. Nelva, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you both for having me. I love that introduction. I'm bringing you guys on tour with me.
Well, that is, we love to ask this question right out of the gate with pretty much anybody we interview, which is, how does it feel to hear your life and work reflected back to you like that? It must sound amazing.
Well, honestly, you guys do an amazing job. You guys just made me seem, bigger than life than I am. So I really appreciate that for sure. But no, you didn't, obviously, took my bio but you just presented it very well. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Well, when you hear that summary, what feels most true to who you are right now, and what feels like maybe it belonged to an earlier chapter?
I love the fact that you said my life is still unfolding, and that is really how I see myself. When I hear that I'm in my 50s, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm already in my 50s. Do you guys remember back when you were in your 20s? That 50-year-old seems so old.
Yep.
Nowadays,
Okay.
I just feel like I'm just getting started. I really do.
I have to laugh. I thought you were about to say, do you remember when you turned 50? And
I did too. I thought
you No, I really, to me, I'm redefining what 50 is. For myself. I just feel like I'm just a wiser version of a teenager just getting started in life. I feel like my whole life is ahead of me, and I just have the wisdom to go with it now.
That is such a brilliant way of putting that. I've never thought of it that way, but because I often feel like in my brain, I still feel like you said in your 20s,
Yes.
but with this youth is wasted on the young wisdom,
Yeah.
Now sometimes my body doesn't agree with me and absolutely feels every one of its 56 years, but that is a beautiful way of putting it. Thank you.
Yeah. Nelva, you began in healthcare administration while raising your children and homeschooling. Wow. And then later moved into teaching entrepreneurship and systems level work. If you had to name one moment where your path really shifted, not just expanded, but what was happening in your life at that time?
Got it. It sounds like I did all of it at the same time. I didn't.
Okay.
So I started a little later with children, 27, which to me was a little late. But I already had a full-fledged career. I was already working in healthcare since I was 18. And so by the time I'd had my son, I was already, in upper management. And so I was a director of patient advocacy and absolutely loved my job. It was a very intense, position. And when my son, my intention was, I'm going to have my maternity leave and go back to work. And I did that. And after he was about a year and a half, close to 2 years, I realized that he was on the spectrum. And I had already worked with children on the spectrum, and I knew what to look for. And so that really derailed my plans. I had planned to be a career woman with children on the side, and I had to completely change the way that I saw my life and what motherhood was. I realized, thankfully, that career will always be there, but your children, they have a very definite time where you have to be invested in them. And I didn't want to mess that up. And so I chose to leave my position as healthcare administrator at the time, and started my own company. So I was very blessed that I was able to do that. It sort of coincided because I was thinking about it before I left my position, and then having to leave because of my son. I thought, well, I might as well go, full force into this new venture now that I'm working from home. And I was also able to work from home as an adjunct professor. So thankfully, technology just made all of those things possible. I've been in and out of the corporate healthcare world, and doing my business, and was able to homeschool my son throughout that period. Homeschool him through the 5th grade, and then stopped really because I had gone, his little brother came along, so they're 8 years apart. And once I had my second son, decided I just couldn't do homeschooling right anymore. I just couldn't do it to the level of quality. And thankfully, emotionally and developmentally, he was doing a lot better. So I was able to put him in a really good private school, and just concentrate on the business.
That's amazing, because it's like these shifts were both asked of you, but also you chose to lean into them.
Correct. Yes.
And like pivoted, not on a dime, obviously. You thought this through, but that's really fascinating. It sounds like then it's continued to happen because you were able to do that at that age. You realize, okay, I can keep shifting, I can keep pivoting.
Yes.
Does that feel right?
That is correct. Yes. And I actually believe that if everyone looks at pivots that way, or transitions, because we often just look at the door that closed, but that say that when one door closes, a window's open. Just look for the window. If you pivot quickly, you'll be able to really just take advantage of what you might consider as a challenge.
I really relate to that. I always say we're masters of pivoting in this house because my son has a seizure disorder that can strike at any time. And it really is the reason I pivoted careers and learned how to work from home and all of that. Right. And so you're right. It's new opportunities that life sometimes forces upon you.
You look back and you go, I wouldn't want it any other way. Right.
I wouldn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm curious about too is where in there, because obviously we talked about you running for office, like where does like your, I can feel like all of your, like your mom life and your healthcare life, like where did your civil service or your desire to be serving your community come in with all that on your plate? Yeah.
Right. Well, I would say that started way back when I was a teenager. So I'm originally from Panama, and I was under the Noriega dictatorship. So do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad, he worked for the canal, and we were targeted because, we're considered close to the Americans. And so a lot of our friends and family members were either exiled or executed. And so my dad sent me away during that time. So I left about a year before the U.S. Invaded. And I can tell you that ever since then, I have been very keenly interested and aware of my civil duties. When I came to the U.S., it was almost as a refugee, even though that was not my official designation, but I felt very much indebted to the U.S., indebted to the freedoms and the opportunities that it gave me, and just wanted to give back immediately. In fact, I wrestled my senior year in high school whether or not I was going to go into politics or healthcare, because I loved both. I was very passionate about both. I had been serving, volunteering at a hospital ever since my teens, and I absolutely loved healthcare, but I also loved politics. I loved civil service and advocacy. But I thought correctly that politics would always be there. So I felt, I can always do that later on in life. And so it's always been something that I knew I would eventually get to. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I think, what's interesting is, as you know, our audience is largely women in their 40s,
Mhm.
50s, and beyond who are navigating these big transitions. And obviously, you have done that in the 10 minutes we've been talking. It's like, holy moly, one transition after another,
Right.
really from your childhood, clearly,
Yes.
which is amazing. What do you think, looking back, what do you think midlife, this part of your life, has asked of you that earlier seasons didn't? I mean, again, big transitions from early age, but what's
Mhm.
different now?
Well, honestly, I feel more liberated now. More than anything, like I
Ooh.
said, I wanted to do motherhood right. And so I felt a bit constrained,
Mm.
in what I could do career-wise when I had children. And I kept being reminded by older ladies, it's a season, it's going to be okay. And childhood goes by so fast that you'll blink and they're grown and they won't need you anymore. So I just kept holding on to that and realizing I will get my time and my chance to do the career that I want at a later time. I actually started. I ran for office once before when my youngest was about a year old, and I thought I could do it. It was for local office, state senate, and found out that politics is all consuming. You know, and I kept making decisions that were better for my child, and realized, you know what, I went through the whole process, did not win, but was grateful for it because I thought I'll put this on hold, put it in my back burner until my kids no longer technically need me. They'll always need you, but where they
Right?
don't need you as much. And so my youngest now is 16, and he really does not need his mom. He makes that very clear as often as possible. And so I feel okay, I will always be available to them, but I feel that I now have the freedom really to pursue this passion that's always been there.
I love what I'm hearing is you are not afraid to take big swings, but you don't allow an outcome that really wasn't what you wanted. I'm not going to say failure because it wasn't
Right.
failure, right?
I learned a lot through that process. So.
Exactly. You took it and were like, okay, I got this. I'm gonna put this in my back pocket and we'll try again later. And a
Exactly.
lot of, and that's I it probably feels like a of course to you, a quote unquote of course. But there are a lot of men and women who wouldn't do that, who would just sort of slink away like, okay, I guess I'm not worthy. And I just love that you didn't do that.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Well, I'm one of the things that I have going for me is I'm uber persistent. I never give up. And that is really the definition of success. It's not failure, it's persistence.
That's
Sure.
Right.
true.
And so if you keep at it, eventually you will win.
Uh,
So,
Yeah. People don't succeed by giving up. That's for sure.
correct.
I want to talk a little bit about like your work with access and equity and empowerment because I have a background in that as well. And I'm a big fan of Atlanta. I'd never lived there, but I've worked in community organizations in DC, New Orleans, and Nashville before moving to Portland. So I'm very familiar with, the Atlanta community is so impressive and so vast.
Yes.
So I'm curious from your experience, because I know from my experience, like what looks good on paper and what actually works are very different things. And I've been a grant writer and a grant, reader and all that, and I've done a lot of direct service stuff. So I'm just curious, what from your experience, like, what do you feel like was like your most satisfying experience early on with that like really kind of grabbed your heart? And also, like, what do you feel like builds trust in that work?
So I can tell you the most satisfying was just being able to push through an initiative and see it from beginning to end and being having a pivotal role in that. So I mentioned I was the director of patient advocacy at the Grady Health System, right? And realized that in one of my programs in that department was interpreting services. And we tried very hard to get all of our interpreters qualified. That means you're not just bilingual, but you have to test your language in both English and the language and your second language, as well as train you as medical interpreters. And so it was really difficult to find training programs. And this was back in the early 2000s that would come all the way to Atlanta. There was a ton in California and in Seattle and in Boston, but none in Georgia. And so I decided, hey, this is a gap in the industry. I'll create my own. And I'd had experience working as an adjunct professor. I had been taught how to create curriculums. And so I took that experience and developed this program, and then quickly realized that certification was the next hurdle, because at the time, there were no national certifications. And in healthcare, everybody has a certification, right? And so became a subject matter expert, created along with a group of other stakeholders the certification process. And I was, rewarded with being the first chair of the National Board of Certification for medical interpreters. And that was in 2010 that we became nationally certified. And like I said, that was a very rewarding process because it took us a good 2.5 to 3 years from start to finish for the certification. And now I'm pivoting out of training. So I've done that for about 20 years now. And so I'm pivoting out of that and just focusing on my agency. So I have an agency now that just provides services. We don't do training, but we still provide services directly to clients and healthcare organizations and other legal offices and the like.
It's so interesting because it's like every time you've found a need, you've just created the answer to it. Like there's no sense of you just thinking, well, there's good intentions, right? Like you've just always found it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you can tell me a time when you didn't, but it feels like every time you saw a need, you were like, I'm going to make that work.
So here's the thing. I think that's how I'm built. And that's why I've always known that politics was a part of my future, because I just can't see something that's not done right, or like you said, a need or even injustice. I just can't see that and not do something about it. That's just how I'm built.
I love
it. And because I'm persistent, I think I will find a way to get some solutions. So right now, I know we're going to get into this eventually, but right now, for me, the injustice that I see in the public school system is what's pushing my drive right now. Mm-hmm. I want to find solutions. I was able to provide my children with, alternative solutions, learning environments that fit their special needs. And I want to be able to see other children in Georgia have the same opportunities.
Mm. I mean, one of the things that stands out from the little bit I was reading and learning about you and listening is that you don't want to just help individuals. You want to build structures that keep helping long after. I mean, I have that feeling. Like my son benefited so much from the supports he got. And so to see any of those not available to people now, what gets me more involved, because I don't know how we would have done that without a para, for his safety, so I get that. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about what you're looking to create in the school system?
Sure. So I mentioned that my eldest benefited from me homeschooling him, but we also adopted a little girl from the foster care system from Puerto Rico. And when she came to us not only with the language barrier, but also with the learning disability, because being in the foster care system, she had been bounced around so many times that she came with so many learning gaps. And so when we got her, she was 8 years old, put her in a public school, and they just didn't teach her anything. They just put her to the side, and I was just appalled. And we took her out after about 3 months and put her in Montessori school, and she thrived. She absolutely thrived. It just fit, her energy, and she had ADHD, and it was one of those things where she didn't have to sit on a desk for 6 hours at a time. They had a farm, and she was able to to get involved with that. And her confidence level just rose. And she started loving school and she started learning how to learn. And I just thought, why don't we have public Montessori's? They have them in Minnesota. They have public Montessori's in South Carolina, even. So I'd like to see us have more public Montessori's and just more options, period. So here in Georgia, we have what we call the Promise Scholarship Act. It's $6,500, but it's only given to families whose children attend the bottom 25 percentile academic schools, and only for families whose children are currently in the public school system. So if you're currently homeschooling your child or your child goes to private school, you're not eligible. And you can only access this if it's your child attends a school that's in the bottom 25 percentile. I like to expand that. I say we do something similar to Florida, $8,000. It's available to anyone that wants to take their child out of the public school system and put them in a learning environment that fits their child, right? They can use that. It's their money. They're the taxpayers, right? It's their money. So I like for Georgia to be able to do something similar to that. And in order for us to be able to succeed in that, we need to first change our budgetary system. So we have a very complicated budgetary system. It's called the QBE budgetary system. Very complicated, that lends itself to fraud. Frankly, it does not lend itself to transparency and easy audits. Again, I like to use the Florida system, which is a very simplified system and where the money follows the child, not the institution. And so all of these changes are something that can be done at the leadership level. That's why I'm running. I want to run so that we have leadership again. Our current superintendent of schools has been in office 11 going on 12 years. And through that time, we have declined in the rankings. We are 38th in the nation, and that's a decline. 70% of our fourth graders are not proficient in reading. That's a decline under his tenure. And 76% of our eighth graders are not proficient in math. That's a decline under his tenure. So I say we can do better. Let's stop going backwards and stop going backwoods. That's the same.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you've described your work as faith-driven, and so we have listeners across many belief systems. Can you talk a little bit about how faith motivates your service and leadership, especially when things feel uncertain or heavy, or you've got a monolith in front of you, which is in some ways changing a budgetary system feels like a monolith to me. So how does your faith factor into all of this?
Oh gosh, it factors prominently. So I don't know how I would make decisions without my faith. So we talked about how I pivot. It's always in consultation with God. Sure. I'm always like, can I, what do you want from me right now, God? And how do you want me to move forward? And obviously I read my Bible on a regular basis and I just get inspiration from that. I'm going to do it. I haven't done this in any other podcast, but I have it right here next to me. I've done this study. I don't know if you can see that. Oh my gosh, it won't let me do it. It's a Beth Moore study. It's called Believing God, and I've done it. It's going to be my fourth time doing it. I absolutely love Beth Moore. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but I just believe in keeping my faith front and center. It's just it's important to me, and it's what drives everything that I do.
I love that.
And there's nothing impossible, Lisa. So you mentioned the monolith that I'm facing. I'm an eternal optimist. There's nothing impossible,
I agree. I agree with that. And you need that sort of grounding in faith, or again, whatever our listeners, whatever their higher power says to them, like you need that grounding so that when a monolith shows up, you're like, I got this. I might not know how, but I know I can. And exactly. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
That sounds like it's your fuel.
It is, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I wanted to ask about service, just because especially for women, right? And one of the things I remember about doing some collaborative work in Atlanta is like I feel like Atlanta is run by incredible women.
Girl power.
So yes. And service can be obviously deeply meaningful. I love the community mindedness, but it can also lead to overgiving.
Right.
And you're not striking me like someone who's like rooted in faith and the way you've like just told your story. You're not striking me as an issue, but I'm just curious, like, how do you discern when it's time to step forward and when it's time to rest and pull back? Because it sounds like you've done that well, but I bet we both know women who just like say yes to everything and then they burn out, right?
Well,
a nonprofit will take whatever you give them.
Exactly. I would say two things that how I serve, because I do believe very much that service is important, and I try to incorporate it on a weekly basis. So like currently I serve at my church and I serve at several nonprofits. So the way that I keep myself from overextending myself is to just simply prioritize. Like my priorities are really, really clear. It's like God first, family second, and then when service is really not even at the top, all the way up there. It's important in that I have to put, I have to incorporate it in my life on a weekly basis, and it fuels me. But at the same time, I don't let it become everything, right? So if it's going to interfere with my time with God, it doesn't happen. If it's going to interfere with my children, it's not going to happen. And I'm okay letting those that I'm serving alongside with, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now because I don't want to overextend myself. And everyone is, as long as you're consistent with any organization, they will respect you not overdoing it. Nice. You know what I mean? So if you're consistently giving on a regular basis, they're like, you know what? I'm not going to push her because she is giving of her time and we can count on her to do it on a regular basis. And so if you tell someone, I just can't do that because I don't want to overextend myself, they'll respect that and they won't keep asking for more. But you have to know your limits.
I think that is so important though, because most women, they worry, right? Because we are used to juggling so many things. They think, oh, if I say no, it's going to hurt somebody. So what I'm hearing is you have walked in with strong, for lack of a better word, boundaries and said, this is how, and they, not only did they respect that, but they honor it. It again, to Kari's question about building trust, it just builds trust. They know that you've got a system and you're going to show up.
Right.
Did you learn that the hard way, or have you just always been like this?
I did learn that the hard way.
Oh no. Shoot, I was hoping that wasn't going to be the answer. Would you like to share?
I did learn that the hard way. I would say that in my early 20s and probably in my 30s, in my early 30s, I did try to be superwoman. And I did learn the hard way that you have to, if in order not to burn out, you have to budget your time wisely. But at the same time, service gives back so much to me. So sure. I can't not do it.
Yeah, it fills your cup.
Exactly. It fills my cup. So I have to make sure I'm balancing it right so that I have it for the long haul. So I can do it for the long haul.
And that's an important piece too about boundaries that I don't think people understand. That when you set boundaries, it actually sets you up for long-term success.
Correct.
Lisa and I are longtime coaches mostly for women, and that balance is something many women wrestle with. Not even just quietly, like at every level. Like they get to a new level, and you think, oh, good, they've finally achieved this executive position, but then they're still feeling like they should give a lot at their kids' school or at their church, or it's just this constant like, what's to who much is given, much is expected is something so many people in our generation really live by, and yet I think have learned, like, the more you say no, the more you can say yes to the things that really matter.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing, you can do it all, just not all at the same time. And so that's really the lesson that I learned, very early on, is that, there's seasons in life, and it's okay if you have to put one thing on hold for a little bit, just so that you can give your quality time to to what you're doing currently. So,
I love that.
yes.
Okay, so you talk about resilience and perseverance.
Yes.
You know, so many women are just sort of tired of being told to be like, stay strong without their pain being acknowledged. So
Right.
when you do look back at setbacks in your life, what has actually helped you to process them, not just keep on keeping on?
Process the pain. Is that what you're talking about?
The setback, the pain, whatever might
Yeah.
be involved, instead of just like, again, a lot of times we just get, okay, well, we just got to keep going. You know, we
Got it.
don't process. And then, of course, it shows up in disease or
Stress.
stress. It shows up in passive aggressively in some way, you
Right.
know,
Right.
if we don't process it. So, how have you done that through your life?
So a few things that I try to do. One, I think it's really important to cry. Like, I don't know.
Yes, I agree.
I'm just letting you know that a good cry is good for the body and the soul. If you need to let it out, just go for it. But one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I journal. Right,
Okay.
that really helps me. When I'm feeling really unsettled, my questions are, okay, is this do I need to journal? Do I need to pray? Or do I need to meditate? Or do I need to work out? Like, those are the four things, and sometimes all of the above, but sometimes it's like, okay, one of those has to happen first. And so I have kind of uncoded, I don't know, this has come through my years, but if I just have too many opposing things in my brain, like I'm overthinking something, just know that that's a journaling session that I need to do. So, like, sometimes journaling it out just makes it make sense, right? Once it's out on paper. Yep. Other times, like earlier this week, I was ordering food for my family, and a lady called me a name which was completely out of, like, nowhere, and I started to get into my feelings, and I was like, it's okay. Once I get home, I'm going to do a good meditation, and it's going to be out of my system. Things like that. So I know, like, what a good deep breathing session, is going to help with that emotion. And so you just have to know, like, what exactly do you need to do with the different emotions that you're dealing with. I'm an avid workout person. I love to run. In fact, I did my first ultramarathon about a month ago. And I find that running works magic for stress, right? Just pounding it out. And so whatever, I can't tell you, what set of tools your listeners need to use, but one of those could really help you, right? Obviously prayer is my first, I do that not as the last resort, but it's my first go-to, is prayer. And so one of those is definitely going to help with the pain.
I love that, because it's like you have a toolbox, and depending on what you're feeling, you kind of can intuitively know which one is the thing that's going to help you, because you've been doing it for so long.
Exactly. And there's one more, and that is get yourself a group of praying partners or friends that you can talk things out with. Not your spouse, if you've been married. Your spouse can get it after it's been dissected by your friends.
Yes.
But we've both been married about 30 years. So yeah.
I've been married 25 years. I can tell you, you can want your spouse to be that girlfriend all you want. It's not going to work. But having a group of girlfriends that you can just really just share your heart with, it's also really important. So.
Oh, I love your toolbox. We're going to have to recapture that when we promote this. What are you most, like, in all of these, like, stories, setbacks, and ways you've grown? Like, I'm curious, like, what surprised you the most about yourself that you're really proud of?
Oh gosh. I would just say recently I've had a couple of really huge challenges, just like in the last 3 to 4 years, and challenges that I had to revisit, like, lessons that I thought I learned. So that would be what surprised me. It's like, it was like, I thought I had already learned this. Why am I going through this again?
Darn it. I always say that. I thought life was linear.
Yes, I thought I had mastered skill set, and now I have to revisit how I did it for previous challenges. And that was what threw me. But I can say that I'm very proud that I got through it again, right? It didn't knock me down. It just showed just how strong and resilient I am. But honestly, I had to reread some of my books. That is just how much of a challenge they were. I was like, okay, wow. Previous Nelva, teach me something. Yeah.
Well, you might have already answered my question. It's a great lead-in because we wanted to talk about your books next, which is, so you've written these books alongside building organizations. What did writing give you that leadership roles didn't?
I see my writing as testimonies, written testimonies. So whenever I go through a challenge, I just have this need to share my path. And so others can learn from my mistakes and also the way that I was able to succeed. And so hopefully they can duplicate it. Yeah. So that, for those of faith, you guys know the scriptures, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. And so that's really the impetus behind a lot of the books that I've written. It's just, I just want to share my testimony. And for me, the best way is to do them in written form.
And then you get to go back and remind yourself. So
learn from wise younger self.
For myself.
Well, also you said you journal, so it's like you could always go back to that too. Wise me. Who were you writing for mostly when you sat down to write these books?
It depends on the book. So I wrote a marriage book for women who were thinking about divorcing their husbands, because I thought about it, and so I went through menopause or premenopause and realized that your hormones decouple, especially the hormones that make you want to connect to your children and your husband. They literally decouple. So your body's literally telling you don't need them anymore. Well, of course, you know that you do. But it's just a challenge. That's why so many women, find themselves, wanting a complete overhaul of their marriages, after they've been married 20, 30 years. And that's because of that. Our hormones, we know the hormones played a role, but I personally didn't know what exactly was happening. And so that was like a great aha moment for me. I was like, oh, okay, I need to share this with everyone else.
Yeah.
So that's one of my books, Stay and Fight, is about that. And then another book that I wrote, Superhero of Your Story, I'm on the prayer team of my church. And as so many people during COVID and the aftermath would come up for prayer for anxiety and depression. And we know that statistically suicide rates went up after COVID and alcoholism, drug use. And I just wanted to write a book really trying to explain to people how to see challenges as a blessing, right? And that's really the core of resilience. It's just reframing a challenge and seeing them really as a opportunity for you to shine, for you to grow. And so, superheroes, right? They need a challenge in order for everyone to see that they're super. And that is really what that book was all about. And so I had overcome, bouts of depression in my early 20s. And I wanted to show everyone, like, this is the path to go to be resilient in these moments.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to your marathon training. Is this a newer thing you've been doing like more recently?
So my first marathon was when I was 25, and it was really on a lark. I had gained like 10 pounds when I started college, the college 10. And I was losing weight I had joined the gym and I had been losing weight, and then my car broke down and I didn't want to lose momentum. So I started walking and running in my neighborhood. And a friend of mine was like, oh, you're running. You should run a marathon with me. I was like, no. You don't understand. I'm only running like 3 miles. She's like, it'll be fun. Let's do it. So I went to this clinic that she'd been doing and ended up running a marathon like 6-7 months later. Wow. And I remember when I was training for this marathon, there was a lady there who was in her first marathon at 75. And I promised myself, when I'm 75, I'm going to do a marathon. So I figured probably every 25 years, I should at least do one.
So it's not like your new thing.
This is my 25-year marathon from the first one that I did. Yes, but I've been doing a lot of 5Ks and 10Ks in between, and I do half marathons. But this was my first marathon since that first one that I did 25 years ago. Yes.
Wow.
It's interesting though, because again, like they say, when you want to create change, moving your legs is symbolically linked to succeeding. So that's really fascinating that you'd be doing this in conjunction with running for office, right?
Yeah.
Many people train for marathons while also like launching a business, because again, that cross discipline helps with momentum. Have you seen
the stress relief?
A million percent. Yeah. So have you seen that marathon mindset trickle into running for office, any other parts of your life? Or was it the other way around? Was it like, okay, I did a marathon at 25. Now I've run a marathon in my life these last 25 years. I'm about to run another marathon in my life, so I'm going to do a marathon.
Well, like I said, I had promised myself I was going to do one every 25 years. And so I wanted to finish this before the race started. And so I kind of put it off, didn't put it off, but I had an injury. And so I had to make it this year rather than last year. But definitely the skills that you learn training for a marathon and running one apply to every facet of life. Really. I mean, because the marathon is all about mindset, right? Yeah. I mean, like our bodies, getting our bodies ready for a marathon takes maybe 2 or 3 months, but the rest is all like in your mind believe that you can do 26 miles, in one time. So that's really, it's just a mindset thing. And so if you can overcome that, it applies to so many other areas of your life.
Well, and they always talk about, like, when you train for a marathon, the longest run's only 20 miles. So that last 6 miles is all mindset. And again, when you're coming up against any challenge, there's lots of stuff that maybe is easy to get through. It's always that final push. And if your mind is not there, it's hard to complete. So it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even the training, though. I mean, honestly, just waking up every morning and going, I have to train because I have to put these miles in. It's just like this whole idea of just discipline and repetition.
I always loved the idea when I was training for something. Somebody said, and because my dad was military, I always had this interesting relationship to the word discipline. It always sounded harsh. So I would have a tough time with that, even though, I mean, loved and respected it. But someone said, when you think about it, discipline when you're working towards something is being a disciple of oneself.
I love that.
You're like your own follower, and so I thought like, oh, that really helps.
Exactly.
Getting up every day. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I love that. Yeah. When you think about women in midlife who are asking what's next for them, what feels most important for you to tell them?
Midlife today, we are so blessed to be, to live in this time. I mean, midlife today is not midlife of 20, 30, 40 years ago. We just have so many more opportunities, so many different things that we can do in our second, third iterations of our life. Yeah. And I'm just so excited for what this new chapter holds. I would just say to your listeners, just that saying that says, today is the first day of the rest of my life. Just have that attitude when you wake up. Okay, if I'm going to live another, say 30 years, 40 years, who knows, how long you are going to live for. But let's just say you live to 80, 90 years old, right? That's, if for 50-year-old, that's 40 years. That's a whole lifetime. Like, what can I accomplish? What are some things that I'd like to do that I didn't get to do before? So this is what I did for my 50th birthday. I went to Europe. I had always I love Europe. I'd been, previously, but this time I went to all the places that I wanted to go to. So I did just by myself. My family allowed me to do this. I went to Rome, France, and England. And I literally like crossed off all the places that I wanted to go.
Mm.
And I remember thinking on this trip, it was my Eat, Pray, Love trip. And I remember thinking on this trip, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed that I get to see all these places and do all these amazing things that I've been wanting to do forever. And I don't know, I think we just have to have that attitude that life is just beginning, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have the extra benefit that you have the wisdom. So
Yeah.
if you take good care of your body will let you do all these things that you like to do.
Love it.
It's a funny question to ask, but like, what do you hope people don't take from your story?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I haven't always done it the best. You know, I can't say that that I've done it perfectly. Obviously, no one has, but you know, I try to learn from my
That would be
mistakes.
boring too.
Right, exactly. But you know, as long as my husband and my children love me, that I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right. And not everybody likes
Yeah.
it. Okay, let's just put it that way. I can be I say this when my leadership style is laissez faire to those who are motivated, but I'm very dictatorial to those who are not. You know, so and so people find themselves on one or the other. So like my very motivated employees absolutely love me. My not so motivated employees,
Makes
they
total
have a
sense.
hard time with Dr. Lee. And so and I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to be a little bit less dictatorial. So I'm not perfect. I'm Kari. I guess is my best. best.
Nobody, yes, I think
I have not written a business book for that reason. So maybe one of these days I'll perfect that and then I can. But
I think that's
I
so.
want I uh-huh.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I want things to move forward so much that, and in order to move forward, you have to have a team, right? You can't do it on your own. So whether it's an organization or now that I hope to become superintendent of schools, I'm going to need to rely on people to get things accomplished. And so that is definitely an area that I would like to perfect is how to motivate those that don't really want to be motivated.
It's a good,
Yeah.
that's a good goal.
Yes.
It is, and what a lofty one for someone who would take on such a big position in such a big city. And I think that it's refreshing when someone's like, I'm not perfect. This is what I do well, and this is what I need a team for.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah. Thank you.
So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. As we always end with a song. We usually ask our guest. So I'm going to ask the question again. You gave us an idea, but now that we've had this whole conversation, is there a song that feels like it captures a chapter of your life or this chapter of your life right now?
So there's no specific song that I
Okay.
can say that's my song. However, on my website, I have a song that my son put together for me, and I would say that it captures right where I'm at right now, especially my race for office. It's a kind of like a theme song for my campaign, and it has faith themes throughout. And it just basically says that I'm running not for position, but because I'm called. And so I would say that that's definitely where I feel what I feel my campaign's at right now.
I love it. Well, our listeners will have to, it's extra motivation for them to go click on the link to your website so they can hear the song because we won't be able to pull that in from Spotify.
Right. That's true. Nelva, thank you so much for spending this time with us today and sharing your story. I found it so inspiring. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
So I mentioned my website. It's drnelvalee.com. That's drnelvalee.com. So please go there. I've got my speeches, other podcast interviews. My books are listed there. My social media handles, all that good stuff.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Good luck on your race. What you're attempting to, what you want to create for the school system sounds exactly right. And it's a lofty goal, but definitely one that, good gosh, we really need. So thank you so much for reaching out and asking to be on the pod. This has been an absolute joy. And thank you to our listeners. We hope you are as inspired as we are by Dr. Lee's story. And then, of course, next week we'll have another episode. So make sure to follow the podcast. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Lee. What a joy to meet you today.
I enjoyed myself.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
You're
Me too.
welcome. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.